Hello, my name is Carson Cabral, and I'm going to go over the Director of Tax Collection. So I have a question for you. Texas brings in billions of dollars of revenue, but who is actually controlling that revenue and who reins in and makes sure it goes where it needs to go? So, in order to explain that, I want to talk about who is responsible, what they're doing, and how do they work, and why do they do it. So let's get into the who. So the goal of a tax collector is to collect the taxes that are due from the surrounding area or districts. So the job of a director is to direct multiple tax collectors and make sure that they are collecting the revenue and it's getting to the proper places, like education, roads, whatever legislation wants the money to go. So the requirements for an accounting, not accounting, for a tax collector is they need to have tons of training, and they need to keep their certification, and they need to be well versed in accounting and finance knowledge. Accounting more than finance, but generally for this position, you want to have at least 8 years of collecting or assessing experience, or even just tax in general experience. And so education, accounting, and finance degrees are preferred, but some positions may not require it. Maybe it's just the training. And so that leads me to Ron Patterson, the man I interviewed. He is the director of Ector County ISD. So he's been tax collecting for 26 years. He's been directing for 18 years, and he was in charge of 8 districts. So what is his typical day? What is he doing? So for his typical day, he's approving financial statements in the office mostly and just guiding his team. And since he has multiple districts, he'll be traveling sometimes to guide and train other districts in order to do the job properly. And so he has annual courses he has to take, and then he also has to get his certification renewed every 5 years. And on average, this position makes $155,000 a year. So, and I got those numbers from Career Insights. What does a tax director do? 2022. And now for the how. How does he do it? So Ron actually started in college as an accounting major, but then switched over to finance. But either one would have worked for this job. He just felt better about finance. And as for job opportunities, you generally, if you want to go for this particular job in tax, you want to apply for a tax assessor or collector. And I got that information from ZipRecruiter tax director jobs, and then for this job as director, it's generally a 40-hour week. It's a government job, so you won't have these time demands that usually private companies will have. And for this job, you gotta understand that it changes sometimes. Sometimes you will have legislation that switches things up. Sometimes like property tax will get changed because there's a lot of protests. You might see a lot of protests because people don't agree about their property taxes. But generally, you're going to see changes in this field. And I got that from Texas Association of Counties on Texas Tax Assessor Collector. And so now for the why. Why do they do it? So what I've learned is that this job demands a high level of efficiency and task management, and a lot of leadership comes from them. So they have to lead all these teams and make sure everything goes according to plan, and that takes a lot of work from you. But the second thing is that this job is pretty consistent. Tax isn't going to be going anywhere in 3 years. There's always going to be taxes collected from the government, and so it makes it a pretty stable job. So the combination of leadership skills and consistency and stability really makes this job really attractive. One of the only downsides is it does take a lot of commitment from you as an employee to be there for a while, because there's not a lot of movement until like someone quits the job, and then there's going to be a vacant in a place. But yeah. And so now for my steps, in order to reach this goal or the director position, I need to complete my education and apply for tax collecting job and then get certified. Those would be my next steps. And then I would just have to go, wait a couple of years and make sure I stayed trained and stayed knowledgeable over tax code. And then in conclusion, tax directors are here to make sure our taxes go from one place to another in the way that we want. And the requirements, you need consistent training, you need to be knowledgeable over business and finance and accounting, and keep your certification, and experience around 8 years. So yeah, I could see why anyone would want the consistency and skill that takes to have this job. And here's my sources.